Hello, calculus fans. If you take the sequence r to the n, r is just some fixed number, that sequence is called a geometric sequence. And we want to know what values of r make that sequence convergent. I want to go through a few special cases. For instance, if you just pick r equals 1, then it's not a very interesting sequence. It's just 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. All right, that sequence obviously converges to 1. It's not going anywhere. If we pick r equals 0, we'll get the sequence 0, 0, 0. That converges to 0. Now, if we pick r equals negative 1, the sequence that we get, it goes negative 1, 1, negative 1, 1, negative 1, 1. And we talked about this sequence. That's divergent. All right, so that's just a few special cases. We can talk about 1, 0, and negative 1 for values of r. Now let's consider the case where r goes between 0 and 1. Now we know that if we take a limit as x goes to infinity, of r raised to the x power, that's going to be 0. So that tells us that the corresponding sequence, r to the n, has a limit of 0. We also know that if r is bigger than 1, the limit of r to the x is equal to infinity. So our sequence r sub to the n diverges. And in a similar way, r to the n diverges when r is less than negative 1. And then for our last case, when r is between negative 1 and 0, we know then that absolute value of r is between 0 and 1. And so the limit of the absolute value of r to the n will be equal to 0. And so we have a theorem that tells us that that means r to the n has a limit of 0. Okay, let's summarize everything that we've calculated there. We have this theorem that tells us about geometric sequences, that the sequence r to the n converges if and only if the value of r is bigger than negative 1 and less than 1. And in that case, we can know what the limit is. The limit's going to be 0 if negative 1 is less than r is less than 1, and it's going to be equal to 1 if r is equal to 1. We're mostly going to be interested in this case because the case where r is equal to 1 is kind of a silly sequence. Yes, it is technically a geometric sequence, but it's not very interesting. Okay, that's all for now.